Okay, here's a wild thought for you. What if I told you that for some of the most driven people out there, finding things funny is actually a sign of weakness? And get this, what if that wasn't a flaw at all, but a strategy? Yeah. Today, we're going to unpack this really fascinating, kind of counterintuitive idea about the different ways we all experience happiness and success.
We hear it all the time, right? Lighten up, be more positive, as if a happy go lucky mindset is the key to everything. But what if that's just one tiny piece of the puzzle? So let's just dive right in with a question that kind of flips that whole idea on its head. Is being serious really a sign of weakness, or could it actually be a hidden strength?
All right, the clue to cracking this whole thing open, it starts with this number right here, plus 0.1255. I know, it doesn't look like much, does it? But trust me, this one little data point pulled from a huge global happiness survey, it tells an incredibly powerful story about a very specific, very intense way of looking at the world.
Okay, so that leads us to our first big idea, what we're calling the strategy of seriousness. So, where did that weird number come from? Well, it's a statistical correlation found in the Oxford Happiness Survey. And what it does is connect a specific worldview to a very particular answer. It shows this clear, positive link between one mindset and people who strongly disagree with the statement, I find most things amusing.
So, this mindset has a name. In a framework called spiral dynamics, it's known as the red vMEME. Now, don't get bogged down by the term. Just think of a vMEME as your mind's operating system. It's the core value system that shapes how you see everything. And this red version, it is absolutely laser focused on three things: power, survival, and getting results right now. For people running on this OS, strategically rejecting amusement, well, that's not a bug, it's a feature.
And this is a really, really crucial point. We are not talking about joylessness here. This isn't about someone who just can't feel happiness. No, a better way to think of it is strategic sobriety. For this worldview, being serious is a calculated tool. It's how you stay focused, how you project strength, and frankly, how you survive when the stakes are incredibly high. I mean, the philosophy is incredibly direct. For this mindset, emotions aren't just feelings. They're either tools or they're liabilities. Period. So things like humor, warmth, those aren't virtues. They're seen as vulnerabilities, openings that a competitor could use against you. Unless, of course, you can use them to dominate a situation or grab a win. So you might be thinking, okay, is this just some random quirk about not finding things funny? Nope, not at all. It's actually part of a much bigger, consistent pattern. This same mindset also strongly disagrees with having warm feelings towards almost everyone, or being intensely interested in other people. See the theme here? It's a consistent psychological signature of strategic detachment, and it's all in the service of power and focus. Okay, so we've gone deep on this one. Very specific mindset. But the red beam, that's just our first stop on a much, much larger and kind of hidden map of happiness. Turns out what we've just seen is only one piece of this incredible puzzle about how different people are fundamentally wired for well-being. And this really brings us to the core idea of this whole explainer. Happiness, it isn't one single thing. It's not some universal destination we're all hiking towards. It's much more like a language. And different value systems, these different vMEMEs, they speak completely different languages of well-being. So what sounds like flourishing in one language can sound a lot like failure in another. All right, so how many of these languages are there? Well, the data points to at least 6 distinct languages of well-being. So let's do a quick tour, shall we? We're going to see how each of these value systems build its own totally unique definition of what a good life even looks like. Okay, here it is, the whole map laid out. Now don't worry, I'm not going to read every single word, but just check out the pattern here. It's amazing. What one mindset calls a flaw, another calls a strength. So for the purple worldview, what we might call pessimism, they'd call it being protective. For the blue worldview, what looks like being joyless is actually being purposeful, you see? Each one of these has its own internal logic for what well-being means. It's a whole spectrum, really, that moves from basic survival to community to individual achievement and way beyond. So, okay, this is a super fascinating psychological map for sure. But so what? Why does this actually matter in the real world? Well, if you're in any kind of leadership role, HR, management, this is huge because this framework completely flips the script on how we should be thinking about well-being at work.
Here's the fundamental problem with pretty much every corporate wellness program out there. They're one size fits all, and that just doesn't work. Think about it. Someone with a purple mindset needs safety and ritual. Forced positivity feels threatening to them. A blue mindset is all about purpose and order. Constant cheerfulness just seems frivolous. The green mindset needs psychological safety to be careful with decisions, not pressure to just go faster. And your yellow systems thinker, they need autonomy to handle complexity, not some simple, "Are you happy today?" checkbox. So the big takeaway is this. The goal isn't to make everyone happy based on one single definition. It can't be. The real goal, the much smarter goal, is to understand these different languages of well-being and then create the specific conditions where each and every mindset can flourish authentically on its own terms. And that brings us to a much, much more effective way to lead. Once you have this hidden map, you can finally move away from those generic one-size-fits-all initiatives and toward an approach that's way more insightful and, honestly, way more impactful. So how do you actually do this? How do you put it into practice? It's actually a pretty simple 3-step model. Step 1, identify. What are the real life conditions your team is dealing with? Are you in a crisis that needs that red response, or are you building stable systems that need blue? Step 2, recognize. What's the dominant language of well-being being spoken? Are people talking about safety, duty, innovation? Listen for it. And finally, step 3, adapt. This is key. Change how you talk. Change what you measure to actually honor that language instead of forcing everyone to speak yours.
So, I want to leave you with this one final question to chew on. When you think about your team, your company, hey, even when you think about yourself, are you really measuring well-being in all its different forms? Or are you maybe accidentally just measuring and rewarding one single version of it and completely missing the beautiful complexity of what it actually means to thrive?